In October 1962, the world held its breath for 13 days. American U-2 spy planes had taken shocking photographs of Soviet nuclear missile sites under construction in Cuba, 90 miles from American shores. President John F. Kennedy's top military advisors, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, were unanimous. The sites were operational, and America needed to launch a full-scale invasion of Cuba immediately. An invasion would have triggered a nuclear war. But Kennedy resisted. He knew something his generals didn't. He knew exactly what those missiles were, how they worked, and most importantly, how long they took to fuel. He knew this because he had the user's manual delivered to him by the most valuable spy of the Cold War, Oleg Penkovsky. Oleg Penkovsky was not a low-level defector. He was a colonel in the GRU, Soviet Military Intelligence. He was a decorated war hero, a man with high-level access and a sterling reputation. But underneath, he was consumed by a toxic mix of ego and fear. He was the son of a white Russian officer, a black mark on his record that he knew would prevent him from ever reaching the top. More than that, he despised Nikita Khrushchev. He saw his leader as a corn-planting buffoon, a volatile, unstable peasant who was arrogant enough to blunder the world into a nuclear holocaust. Penkovsky, in his own mind, was the only one who could stop him. In 1960, he began a desperate campaign to make contact with the West. He approached American students on a bridge in Moscow. He passed a note to a British businessman. The CIA was wary. Was this a KGB trap? But MI6, the British service, recognized the opportunity. They recruited him, along with the CIA, in an operation codenamed Hero. His main handler was a mild-mannered British businessman named Greville Wynne. For 18 months, Penkovsky embarked on one of the most productive reigns of espionage in history. He didn't just pass information, he passed a library. Using a miniature Minox spy camera, Penkovsky photographed thousands of pages of top-secret Soviet military documents. He handed over the entire operational plans of the Soviet military. He gave them the personal phone numbers of high-ranking GRU and KGB officials. He revealed the locations of secret bunkers. But his greatest gift was the technical specifications for the entire Soviet missile arsenal. He handed over the complete manuals for the R-12 or SS-4 medium-range ballistic missile. This document told the CIA and MI6 everything: its range, its payload, its guidance system, and its launch procedures. Crucially, it revealed its greatest weakness. The SS-4 was not a push-button weapon. It was a liquid-fueled rocket that took over 8 hours to fuel and prepare for launch. It was a cumbersome, defensive weapon, not a first-strike threat. This single piece of intelligence changed everything. In 1961, during the Berlin crisis, Khrushchev threatened to cut off West Berlin. Kennedy's advisors urged confrontation. But Penkovsky's data showed that the entire Soviet missile force was a hollow shell. They had very few working ICBMs, and their conventional forces were a mess. Kennedy, armed with this knowledge, knew Khrushchev was bluffing. He stood firm, and Khrushchev backed down. Penkovsky had averted a crisis, but the next one would be his last. In October 1962, the U-2 photos landed on Kennedy's desk. The Joint Chiefs, looking at the images, saw an immediate mortal threat. They argued that the missiles were operational and could wipe out the East Coast in minutes. They demanded an invasion. But Kennedy, along with a small circle of advisors, looked at the photos and then looked at Penkovsky's documents. The analysts at the CIA's Penkovsky Center overlaid the spy's manuals onto the photos from Cuba. They were a perfect match. This is the moment that saved the world. Because Kennedy had Penkovsky's manual, he knew the missiles were not operational. He knew the warheads were likely not even on site yet. He knew that even when they were, they would take 8 hours to fuel. He knew he had time. The Hawks were demanding an invasion, an act that we now know would have been met with tactical nuclear weapons already in Cuba, triggering a full-scale exchange. But Penkovsky's data gave Kennedy the confidence to resist. It allowed him to choose a different path: the naval blockade. The quarantine was a move that was forceful, but not an act of war. It bought the clock time needed for diplomacy, for back-channel negotiations, for Khrushchev to find a way out without losing face. The ultimate revelation is just how close Penkovsky cut it. The KGB had been suspicious of him for months. They had been watching his handler, Win. They had a shadow agent follow him on a trip to London. As the Cuban Missile Crisis was reaching its peak on October 22, 1962, the same day Kennedy announced the blockade to the world, Oleg Penkovsky was arrested in Moscow. His last signal to his handlers was a frantic, garbled phone call. He had given the West the key to solving the crisis just days before he was caught. Without his intelligence, the world would have almost certainly stumbled into World War III. Penkovsky knew the risk. He was tried for treason, and in one F963 he was executed. His actions, born of ego and patriotism, bought the world the time it needed to survive its most dangerous moment. If you want to uncover more stories of the spies who changed the world, subscribe now. There is always more to the story.